Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into R.K. Narayan's classic text, The Vendor of Sweets. We are going to explore a really fascinating generational clash. But honestly, this isn't just your standard father-son disagreement. At its core, this is a deep, fundamental battle over the true meaning of education. In this education explanation, we're going to look at how two completely different eras define learning, success, and the path to a fulfilling life.
So before we even get into the backstory of our characters, we have to look at the exact moment these two completely different worlds collide. Just imagine a household where the father is totally anchored in ancient tradition and political asceticism, while his son is just vibrating with modern youthful rebellion. What happens to the whole concept of education when these two opposing forces sit down at the same breakfast table?
Well, it starts with this. I can't study anymore. Boom. This single, blunt declaration from Molly to his father, Jagan, completely shatters the status quo and their home. With just those 6 words, Molly triggers a massive educational rupture. It's a total rejection of the formal path that's been laid out for him.
Section 1. The Sweet Vendor's Worldview.
To really grasp the sheer weight of Molly's rebellion, we first need to look at his dad, Jagan, and his highly specific, self-directed form of education. Jagan is a guy who has structured his entire life around a very rigid curriculum of his own making. Notice how his daily life actually is his education. He gives up salt and rice to master his cravings, he spins his own yarn every single day, strictly follows Gandhian philosophy, and is constantly studying the Bhagavad Gita right at his sweet shop. For Jagan, education is absolutely not about sitting in a lecture hall. It's about rigorous daily discipline and moral purity.
And this quote right here brilliantly illustrates his mindset. Jagan literally tells his cousin, "Conquer taste and you will have conquered the self." He truly believes education is about self-mastery and spiritual discipline. He's always testing his theories of natural living on himself. This deeply ingrained worldview makes his son's upcoming actions just utterly incomprehensible to him. Like, how can a boy just quit learning?
Section 2. The Rejection of College. This brings us to the exact moment formal education goes right out the window. As Chapter 3 opens, Molly makes his life-changing announcement out of absolutely nowhere. Over a simple plate of upma for breakfast, Molly casually informs his father that he has a new idea and is simply done with his college studies. He doesn't want to study, and he flat out refuses to go back. Jagan is, understandably, completely aghast.
Just look at the dramatic contrast between their perspectives here. On one side, Jagan believes college is a basic qualification a young man should have, but that dropping out for a grand political cause, like Gandhi's non-cooperation movement, is incredibly noble. On the flip side, Molly doesn't have a grand political cause at all. He just completely despises the syllabus, finds it boring, and simply refuses to attend. It's a very modern, highly individualized rejection of the institutional system.
Section 3. The Cousin as Translator.
Because Jagan literally cannot communicate effectively with his own son to figure out this educational crisis, he relies on a cousin to act as a cultural translator between the two of them. Jagan actually tries to rationalize Molly's actions by comparing it to his own youth. He reminisces with the cousin about leaving college when Gandhi ordered them to non-cooperate, remembering how heroic he felt. So he asks the cousin to investigate Molly, hoping to find some equally noble excuse for why modern boys refuse to study. But the cousin comes back with some pretty shocking news. Molly didn't just casually drop out to go find himself. He violently rejected the very tools of his formal education. The cousin reveals that the word college drives Molly crazy. He hates his lessons, his syllabus, and all his books. In fact, he actually tore up the pages of his class books savagely and ordered a servant to throw them straight in the kitchen fire. I mean, this is a complete and utter destruction of traditional academic authority.
Section 4. Redefining the writer. This totally destructive act forces Jagan to figure out what Molly actually wants to do with his life. But when the cousin reveals that Molly wants to be a writer, it leads to a tragically comedic misunderstanding rooted entirely in colonial history. Because of his generational context and his own education, Jagan hears the word writer and immediately thinks of the old Anglo-Indian colonial term for a clerk. He remembers Macaulay's education system, which was designed purely to provide a constant supply of clerical staff for the East India Company. Jagan is horrified. He thinks his son has quit college just to become a lowly desk clerk.
You can see the profound disconnect here, right? Jogin actually cries out in aristocratic horror. Why does he want to be a writer? It's degrading. He feels he's raised his boy to be an aristocrat, and now Molly wants to throw it all away for clerical work. It literally takes the cousin explicitly spelling it out for the truth to finally dawn on Jogin. Molly doesn't want to be a clerk. He wants to write stories. He wants to be an author.
Once that reality clicks, Jagan's reaction is just incredible. He immediately pivots from horror to immense pride. The cousin says, well, he may become a second Bharati or Tagore or Shakespeare someday. Jagan completely romanticizes this new, unpredictable educational path, somehow entirely missing the absurdity of jumping from a lowly clerk to Shakespeare in 5 seconds. The idea of his son being a poet or a novelist suddenly elevates Molly's rebellion into something resembling genius in Jagan's eyes.
Section 5. The American Ambition. But Molly's vision for his future education and career is far larger than just staying in his room and writing poetry. Look at this escalating trajectory. First, he quits formal college and burns his books. Second, he decides to enter a novel writing competition in the magazine Ananda Vikatan to win 25,000 rupees. But he doesn't stop there. He eventually reveals his true ambition. He plans to move to America. Molly is seeking a completely westernized, global educational experience, far removed from the sweet shop in Malgudi. So how does our traditional father handle this? Well, in a brilliant twist of self-deception, Jagan actually manages to reframe his son's modern, secular, and American-focused rebellion as a fulfillment of his own traditional values. It really is something to marvel at. He remembers the word service from his days following Mahatma Gandhi, and he convinces himself that by writing books, Molly is providing reading for others and therefore performing a great service to humanity. He completely bends Molly's modern educational path to fit his own orthodox worldview. As we wrap up this explainer, this is the vital question we really have to ask ourselves. Molly destroyed his books and rejected the syllabus, claiming he wanted to be a writer and head off to America. But is Molly truly seeking a better, more authentic way to learn and educate himself? Or is he simply running as fast and as far away from Jagan's traditionalism, spinning wheels, and salt-free diets as humanly possible? Think about that as you reflect on the deep educational clash in the vendor of sweets. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what it truly means to learn.